Welcome to Corporate Baggage, where we will help you unpack, repack, and lighten the load. We're your hosts, Whitney Siders and Catie Campbell.
For nearly 40 years, we've been coaches, consultants, and leaders inside organizations and supporting global enterprises and Fortune 500 companies to help make those organizations strong and healthy.
If there's a hot topic in the workplace, you better believe we'll be unpacking it here. Topics like return to office, performance reviews, compensation. Nothing is off limits. Like, subscribe, follow us, and drop your baggage in the comments so we can unpack it together and lighten the load.
The only thing that should be in your bag is your paycheck. Welcome back to Corporate Baggage, and we are further unpacking this bag around work-life balance. And I'm super excited to dig into this particular topic because, Whitney, since I've known you, this is one that we have talked about a ton. And in particular, over the last couple of years, my life has changed significantly. Yours has changed significantly. And I think that there's so many listeners out here, and we see it also all over social media, the struggle with the exact same part of it, which is really around the mental load that comes with trying to figure out work-life balance and how your mental load impacts your ability to feel balanced. And also all the family dynamics that go into your ability to have balance. And I'm not just talking about people with children. This goes far beyond that because some people are thinking of family as their friends and or even more distant relatives, not blood relatives, what have you. Our family is our family. Pets are our family. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of family dynamics and really there's a mental load component to work-life balance that we need to talk about. So let's unpack it.
Let's do it. Yeah, let's start with the family dynamic and just how that has, I like the word morph that we've been using. Mm-hmm. It seems like that is a word that keeps coming up because when you think about over the past 10, 20 years, it was still really primarily, now let's go with the societal norm of women being the, maybe not stay at home, but taking on a lot of that mental load. And at least I've seen, not just in my personal life, but also with some of our clients, is that is shifting a lot. You have dads or other partners staying at home or carrying some of that mental load in a different way than ever before.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And I love that. And that doesn't make it any more easy.
No.
I think back when, my oldest daughter is 14. So I think back to when she was born and how it was just fairly understood, even though I never declared it, that I would take on a lot of the mental load around everything that had to do with doctor's appointments to we need to buy her new clothes or shoes or what have you because she's growing to what we're going to feed her and when, that it primarily came from me. But the fact of the matter is her dad is an intelligent person and really had all the capabilities in the world to help direct all of those things. But that wasn't sort of the stereotype, I think, that even 14, 15 years ago that I started and became a parent. It felt very different. It felt like, well, yeah, but you're still the mom. So, Yeah,
I mean, running a household, no matter who is carrying that mental load, it's all of the unseen things that we don't talk about. And I think it's easy to forget, even being in the workplace myself, right? Easy to forget that everyone has different versions of what that mental load looks like. But you are essentially the business owner of your household, which includes so many elements, whether it is childcare, pet care, keeping the house clean, stocked.
Financing is a huge one, right?
I mean, are the packages coming today? Can they get delivered to my house? I mean, when I lived in the city, that was a whole job in and of itself because I couldn't get packages mailed to my house. So I had to manage that process. I mean, talk about supply chain there.
Oh, and your dryer broke and you need a new one.
Right.
And also you should probably get the HVAC system clean because isn't it time to do that?
And I'm doing a basement renovation. So I'm managing a whole basement renovation at the moment. So there's all of these things that are happening. And I have a very supportive partner. Mm-hmm. He's amazing at doing the things that are the unseen things, a lot of them doing himself, and a lot of the things that we talk about and divide up. It has to be said because otherwise they're just in my head. And that's really hard, I think, for people to acknowledge that you have to get some of those things out in order to get help for them.
It's so true. And one of the things that you and I are big TikTok fans, and that's why we have a TikTok account. It's why we love creating them, but we also learn a lot from it. And there's a ton of data that you can glean from the kinds of stories that we see. And there is a huge groundswell, at least in my For You page. There's a huge groundswell in the last year or so for women who are stepping forward and saying, I'm tired of carrying the mental load and I'm out.
Oh, yeah.
Right? That they're ending relationships, their long-term relationships or partnerships or marriages because they're carrying.
Or standing their ground.
Saying, I'm not doing the dishes and won't do the dishes because they're not even their dishes. It's all the other humans live in their house and nobody else picks up after themselves. Or I've seen videos where women will go away for a weekend, like a girls' weekend, and come back and the house is trashed. It was clean when they left and it's trashed when she comes back. And now that is part of her to-do list, expected, right? But they're showing these videos to basically say, I'm done doing this. I'm done being the person who has to do it.
But here's the distinction.
Okay.
Is I think there's a difference between saying my partner, whether it's male, female, doesn't matter. Whatever the dynamic is for you, if you are the person carrying the mental load, there's two paths that you could take. That person doesn't understand, they can't do it, I can't believe they're not helping, or let me help, let me show them, or let me unpack it for myself so that we could divide and conquer together. There's an amazing, there's a really great TikToker, we'll tag her here, and she does a really good job at giving tips on how to do that and how to actually show her partner what that really looks like and where help is needed and how they divvy it up. There's also a really good card game we'll have to tag in this that Tim and I actually did around that unpacks the different types of, let's call them chores or activities in the household. And when we went through that exercise, it was actually really helpful to see some of those things written down on cards that I do that I didn't realize I do. Like, for example, planning birthday parties or planning gifts when you're going to a birthday party. Like, who's going to do that? Right? And it's just assumed that someone's going to do it, but why?
I've had conversations in the past where it's like, so, pick one of the kids has a birthday party to go to. So do we need to get a gift?
Yeah,
it's a kid's birthday party. You bring a gift, like even if it's just a card with some cash stuffed in it, like you bring a gift. So
like when you're going to someone's house, like you bring something.
Yes,
wine, food, something.
Yeah, shout out to Miss Manners. We learned we learned that that's what we needed to do. But it is a constant. It's a constant tape, and I think what you said a bit ago is really brilliant around thinking about your home life as a business, because it really does encapsulate all of the different it operating it. It encapsulates everything that we see in the typical business world, including hiring and firing.
I mean, it's
onboarding,
true.
exiting, whatever.
It's so true.
And I think because when we take this back to how do we help people think about new ways to find balance, putting your home life in a context like that makes it so that it doesn't feel so emotional when you're making decisions about things. So, for example, for the longest time, I took so much pride in cutting my own grass and fixing things around the house, like painting and small repairs and yard work, like landscaping, anything that I think I learned to do as a child growing up. I do it in my own home and I take pride in it. But it also was adding to this massive amount of just mental load of like, oh yeah, that's right. Okay, Saturday, I need to go to the store and get the mulch and to do the thing. And it was like the mental load. And this is what I'm running through my head on Thursday afternoon, and it's not even Friday yet. The mental load on top of running a couple businesses and doing all this entrepreneurial activity, it's hard to try and then say, so I stopped. I started looking at, without using your context, I started looking at my life like a business in that way and said, no, I'm going to outsource that. I'm going to have contract help. These are people who are part of the team that helps to make the household run. And for me as a single parent, I don't have another adult in the house to be able to say, hey, I need you to help me come lift this. Sometimes I have to have somebody come and hang a TV or hang a ceiling fan. And I know how to do those things, but I usually need a second set of hands to help. If I don't have that, I'm going to have to contract that out.
Yeah. I mean, It's exactly right. When you start thinking about your home operations as maybe it's a business, maybe it's just the operations of it, but the planning around it needs to change too. And once you could do that, and maybe it is outsourcing if you can afford that, maybe it's not. But the more, if you can think about that in a way that allows you to outsource, we talk about this all the time. There's a trade-off to everything. So my husband was deployed for 4 months, and I said, what am I going to outsource that he was doing? Because like I said, he was an equal partner in doing a lot of the home activities. And I said, I'm not going to be able to do those, or it's going to take away time from my business or from my son. And so that was the trade-off. And so I said, what can I outsource? One of those things was lawn care. So when he got back, he said, oh, well, I'll just pick that back up. And I said, whoa, whoa, whoa. Instead of doing that, that is 2 to 4 hours on a Saturday a Saturday or Sunday that you would be trading off family time for, versus could we just do it for, at the time it was like a couple more months or like another month in the season. And so we made that decision to keep that for at least this year because it's the trade-off of time. And so another practice that we do that is really helpful, just throwing out a little quick maybe carry-on essential for you here is, and again, our previous episode, we talked about experimenting. Always experimenting. I don't claim to ever have this exactly right or perfect, but what we try and do is each week, we do this on Sundays, is look at our week and say, okay, we got a doctor's appointment here. I have a work dinner this night, so you're going to have to cover bedtime. Like, these are the things that we have this week, just to make sure we're on the same page. Yeah, sure, we have a shared calendar, but it's just getting us primed for the week. And we certainly list out priorities, just like I do for work, list out priorities that need to get done. Like, we need to return these things. We need to prepare these things for the taxes, or whatever it is that week. Take these things to the consignment store. Like, what are those things that will really make us feel good during the week? Even to we even talk about meal planning in that too. Like, how the dreaded what's for dinner, like, oh my God, don't even get me started on that. So we kind of try and plan out like, okay, this week, here's what we need. Pull out of the freezer this day, do this day. So it helps a little bit.
Yeah, it does. And, we're talking a lot about children in here, and that the age of your children and the needs of your children also really significantly impact. That is your family dynamic, right? And that does impact your mental load. So you have an almost 2-year-old. I have a 10 and a half and 14-year-old. I can't get that wrong. I'll get in trouble. Our family dynamics are very different. And you've got your amazing husband, and I have me. So our family dynamics are very different, and we're also at very different stages, and our children need something different from us. So during the day, you have like 20, probably 30 more things that you have to do for your son because he's little and he's a toddler. For mine, it's just like, did you wash? Cool. We're good. Has everyone fed? Has everyone got their homework done? And it's easier there. But that's not the case for everyone. You and I both have, and we have clients and friends that have children with significant special needs. We both have family members and
aging
clients
parents,
and friends,
pets.
Aging parents, right? Pets, all sorts of family. And then geographic distance. Like, there's a lot of people.
Support systems.
Like, for me, I don't live geographically close to any of my family. Sometimes when you do live geographically close to your family, that also adds to the dynamic of other things that need to go on your to-do list. So it's really complicated for people to even feel balanced because of the family dynamics that they have right in front of them.
You brought up something that makes me think about another thorn in my side. It reminds me of the women on the podcast, if I've had it. We'll have to tag them in this, but you know what I've had it with when it comes to corporate this work-life balance is parents who are trying to stay home with their children and work.
Okay. You're going to have to dig in there.
I don't know how they do. Like you said, like, I have 20 million things going on in the day, but one of them is not caring for my child while I'm trying to work. And I get it. If you might have a kid that needs to stay home sick one day, sure, like, let it happen. It happens. But to have to then say, I'm not going to send my kid I'm talking kids that are like 5 and under.
Okay.
Like, they're not in school.
Yeah.
So I'm going to not send my kid to daycare or whatever childcare it is, and I'm going to work a full-time job and then talk about balance and complain about balance.
Okay, I tried to do this though, Whitney.
Why and
Because,
how? You're short ending yourself, but you're also short ending the business.
I tried to do, okay, it wasn't because I was crazy.
I know we're stepping into a little bit of a messy thing, and I understand also that there is the factor of I can't afford childcare and I need to work. I get that. But for the people who can afford childcare and they're choosing to have their children at home, how are you working? How are you doing it?
So I did it very poorly. This was right when my oldest daughter she was an infant, and we eventually hired a nanny who came every day. So she lived locally. She didn't live with us. But I, as a new parent, thought, oh, well, she's little and she's on a schedule and this can't be that hard. And that was at the very beginning of using like Zoom and those kinds of tools to connect with my team. I was living in Virginia. My whole team was in California. So I was able to do that, but I was stretched to the max. And the company that I was working for, this is a nonprofit, was very progressive. It was run by two amazing women. And they were like, no, that's fine. We never had the option to do that. Let's see if that'll work. So they were encouraging me to just go with it. And as a new parent, it is difficult to leave your child with somebody else. Daycare, even family sometimes, but like daycare, nanny situation, whatever the childcare situation is, it's tough. So I tried to do it all, and I thought I was going to lose my mind. I think she was like 10 weeks old and went through some weird growth spurt, and she was a complete disaster. So I was a complete disaster. It was terrible. And so, yeah, like 2 weeks later, I hired a nanny, and then everything was fine. But even then, going through the process of trying to get her into daycare seemed impossible. There were wait lists.
It is impossible.
Like, she's born. What am I supposed to do? And we were researching this 9 months earlier. Same with trying to find a nanny person to watch her, trying to find the right person and interviewing people. It was like, again, you're running the business of your household. It was really difficult. And so now the way the economy and everything has progressed in just the last 4 or 5 years, people feel like they don't have a choice. There's not childcare available. It's too expensive. And I mean, it almost like completely takes their income that they're working for while their kids at home. It's a total nightmare. It's a mess. And there's zero balance in any of that.
No,
zero.
There's no balance. And we're stepping into the childcare situation in America, which is maybe not where we want to go today, but it's an issue. It's a big issue for everyone. And I know the factors are definitely stacked against parents 100%. And in what we're trying to understand and unpack a little bit is, how do businesses support parents in a way that maybe they don't provide childcare, but we're talking about in supportive environments, right? And I do think that there needs to be boundaries, because the parent that is staying home and yes, maybe can't find childcare, but you have at 10 weeks, but you have it lined up for 14 weeks.
Right.
Okay. The parent that is at home trying to work with a 2-year-old, to me, if I'm a business owner, that is not acceptable. I'm sorry. That's not acceptable. I have a 2-year-old. I cannot work with a 2-year-old. Like, that is not possible.
No, it's not.
And I don't think he's an exception. Like, he is a crazy toddler. I think I've met a calm toddler.
No such thing.
So, maybe I can get a ton of stuff done during his nap, but otherwise, it's not happening. And I don't. Either that agreement is made with the business at the outset, but that's not what I'm seeing, at least online, is people posting and saying, they're just doing it behind the scenes.
They're doing it behind the scenes because I think for a lot of people, they feel like they don't have a choice because the options are very limited based on either what they're getting paid to do, what their work is, what the work requirements, the flexibility or lack thereof is. I feel like not everybody is trying to game the system and say, oh, I'll just like save money on childcare and I'll get to work at the same time. I've never met anybody who's even tried to do a little bit of that, even on the days where your kid is sick and you have to kind of make sure, like, are you still good? Like, just watch the cartoons, I guess, while I get this other stuff done. It's the most disruptive day when that happens. So nobody's getting the benefit, and there is zero balance in that. You're not being a great parent. And I admit that because I said that I did it before. I wasn't being a great parent and I'm not being a great employee. I absolutely know that.
Yeah, you feel like you're not winning in either situation.
No.
So it's a lose-lose. It's a lose-lose game. And the whole point around balance is feeling like you can give your best in what you're doing.
Right.
And if work is set up in a way that helps you do that, ideally you are going home where you feel like you can be a better parent. You can be a better wife, mother, brother, sister, whatever it is in that environment if that environment is supportive. And so how do we create that?
So you asked that question too. Well, first and foremost, what I would love is, especially being a mom, is I would love it every time that I go and I travel for work to not have people ask me where my children are. Who's watching your kids while you're gone? Like, they have a dad. He is. Oh. I'm thinking, do you think that I really leave my kids at home alone? They're 14 and 10. Like, first and foremost, one of them would not be alive when I got back. And second, I've never...
Well, someone's watching them.
Yeah, obviously someone's watching them. But the point is, I've never had a male colleague that I've traveled with that has children that someone says, and who's watching your children? Nobody. So first and foremost, like the family, like the way that companies can support is just recognize that, you know, women, men, anybody, that their goal is not to, their goal should not be to weigh in on like, or judge even in what they think is an innocuous kind of comment. They shouldn't judge on, oh, you're here, that means your kids are where, like in limbo. Like it's sort of just like honoring the fact that like we need to be building in supports to really help people so that they're not feeling like it's an either or. I can be a good family member or run my family and be in balance and also be a good employee. Because I feel like to me, that's the sentiment that I get even when I get asked that question. And I own my own business. It's not even like I'm working in a different business. It's really helping them to see that like, you don't really need to step that far into it, but you also should be checking in with people to say, hey, does this work schedule work for you? Hey, does this travel schedule work for you? How does this impact your family when you have to travel? That would be a more interesting question to answer.
And I think that is a tricky one too, because you want to be asked as a parent, and you also want there to be no negative things that could, like, you want to have a even playing field. So I'll give you an example. So coming back from maternity leave, working at a very progressive, helpful company, and this question came out of a desire to help of, hey, you have this upcoming trip, like, are you sure you want to go on it? Which was coming from a place of, I want to make sure I care. I'm checking your schedule, just what you just said. And how I took it was, so you're trying to get me out of this because I'm a parent? Like, you're trying to give me an out because I might not want to go? When really I wanted all of the opportunities that I had ever had before and not be treated as less than or different because of being a parent.
Yeah, now that you're a parent, maybe you can't go on that trip.
Right.
Maybe that would be too much.
And that was never a question before.
No.
Right. And to be very clear, it was coming out of a place of wanting to help
100%.
and be supportive.
Yes.
And at the same time, I know that that's happening across a ton of companies. Even if you are supportive, and I know you're listening to this probably thinking, well, we can't say anything right as a leader. Well, or you could just lead from a place of curiosity of, hey, here are the facts. You choose. We're supportive in whatever you want to do. It's your choice. How can we help? How can we help make it easier for you? Whether that is a parent or, like you said, someone with aging parents, someone with pets, everyone has something going on. Everyone's running a household or running something, right? So how can we help make this easier for you if you're needing to travel for work? What does that look like for you?
Well, I mean, I think, look, it goes back to employers understanding how to create really intentional, strong relationships with their employees so that you can get into a conversation where you don't get in that pickle of, well, where are your kids going to be? Or are you sure? Because you don't really have to go, and making an assumption about people. It's not about saying something right. It's about developing relationships with people so that you can have conversations about, hey, we've got this new project that's starting and it's going to be significantly more work. I want to make sure that you feel really good about what you're saying yes to, which isn't a judgment of, I don't know if you can do it. Or it's not a judgment of, this is going to make you have to work harder, or this is going to have an impact at home. It's just treating people like an adult to say, this is what the project is. Are you ready to take this on? And if the answer is yes, awesome. If the answer is no, we renegotiate.
And there's no penalty to that.
There's no penalty to that. But that's, unfortunately, I think what we've both seen is that's few and far between. And saying to someone that, like, this is not about policy and regulation, although that actually helps a lot in corporate America. This is more about having the relationship between the employee and their manager so that there can be that open dialogue about how do we structure things so that it works for everybody on both ends. And that is something that's totally possible.
And having that relationship where it is, you are bringing your full self so that it's understood. Now, in the example I just gave, I had a really great relationship with multiple leaders at this company. And I was able to actually go back and say, hey, you asked this. I know it was coming from a place of care. And I want you to know that I want to be offered every opportunity. And that was also very respected in that environment too. So I was able to have that conversation. Also, my family dynamic was known. So that was helpful. Whereas if I'm coming to a leader and saying, well, I really want to keep my life private, which I respect, and a lot of people choose to do that.
Yes.
However, what the trade-off there is, they don't understand what you have going on at home. And I don't care what people say, it affects you subconsciously or consciously. You show up to work today and you had a pet pass away yesterday. That is going to affect how you are. Whether you could turn it on or off, you might be subconsciously a little bit more short, or however that shows up for you. And how nice would it be, even if you don't have to talk about it, but for others to know, hey, like, let's just give a little bit more grace today. We all have things going on. I'm not saying come and unload everything at work.
Right.
But like, you are still breathing, living at work. And I hate it when people are saying, well, that's my personal life, that's my work life. It's life. It's life.
Yeah.
And I do think that there are boundaries and there needs to be separation. But in terms of talking about how things are going in your life, I think that it has to be a little bit infused.
I think it can be, but this is what's going through my head. And we've known each other and worked together for a long time. So it's like not surprising to me. And I know the workplace you were talking about, yes, progressive. And yes, it was all those comments and stuff was said out of a place of love, respect, and, support. And you're the kind of person that's going to like go, okay, no, just give me the opportunities. And you're going to go back and have that conversation. We have a lot of listeners who will not do that. Who sit there and go, yeah, Whitney, that's nice for you. And I'm not being critical,
No, I know. I agree with you.
But that's nice for you, Whitney, but that's not me. Or that's great because you had an awesome relationship with your manager and I don't have that. There's also a lot of people who are struggling with, so we talked about family dynamics, about people who are living, deaths in families. Certainly, you talked about aging parents, but it's not even that. It's family members who get a terminal illness. I had a woman that I worked with a couple years ago that basically she was a COO of a company and said, I got to be out for a month. Like literally came into her workplace one day and said, I have to be out for a month because my husband has stage 4 lung cancer. It came out of the blue, like,
oh my goodness,
kind of thing, like really came out of left field for them. And she's like, I got to be out. Well, she's like she's running the operations of this entire company and a lot of things flow through her. And she's like, I just got to be out. That's a family dynamic you're not looking or you're not necessarily anticipating. People who are trying to build their families and it's harder. They're doing adoption, foster care, kinship care. They're going through just infertility more generally, which comes with all sorts of appointments and procedures and time off and downtime and
physical.
Not everybody wants to talk about that, right?
Illness, yeah.
Right? When you're building your family and the partnerships that you choose, that does, I mean, there's stereotypes and there's people that go, no, I'll keep that part of my life private because I don't want to be seen a certain way at work, or I don't want to lose out on opportunities that.
And what's the balance to that too? Because I 100% agree. If I'm going through a miscarriage, I might not want to say, hey, I need to be out because.
And here's why.
And here's why. However, I do think what you could say is I'm going through a medical like emergency or medical situation at the moment that is private to me, but is, it's important. Or I'm dealing with a family issue right now. Generalize it, but still be honest in a way that says, I'm going through, even if you say I'm going through something hard right now, keep it as general as that. But there's something going on. And this is not to give people an out or anything like that. But I mean, I think you'd agree that in today's world, we can all give each other a little bit more grace. I don't think that would hurt anyone.
No more grace for anybody. No.
And I'm pretty tough.
I know. No, we both are on these things. It is absolutely a two-way street here in my mind. I co-facilitate leadership retreats multiple times a year, men's retreats, women's retreats. And we've done a bunch of retreats together where we ask people to go really deep and share with each other. Sometimes they're all from the same company. The ones that I'm thinking about right now are ones where it's people from all different companies. And one of the things that we have them do is really share their story, like really share their story of what's going on. And so you hear, 20 different stories of, I'm going through a divorce. My child is, we just had to institutionalize them. I'm just battling cancer. Our company is losing money and we don't know what to do. Like, there are all sorts of things, right? There's all sorts of like life things that are happening for people. And when you walk into the room and you meet all these folks, you meet their title and their name and their company. And it's like, oh yes, that's Whitney. And she's the vice president of this. And she's in charge of these 3,000 people. And you go, wow, that's amazing. But Whitney's got a whole life that she's carrying with her. She's got her own baggage, and it's not bad. It's just life that goes to work with her every day, comes into these retreats, of course, but like it's there all the time. If you're struggling with infertility, it's there all the time. If you are dealing with an aging parent, it's there all the time. If you just have a delightful but still 2-year-old toddler, it's there all the time of all the things that come with it. And so I think for leaders, one of the things I recommend to people, even if they don't know what the story is to just honor their own story first and then say, but then if that is your story, every single person that you meet, and in particular, when we're thinking about this in the workplace, everybody on your team has a story. And right now, somebody's story might be benign. Like they just go to work and they do sports activities on the weekends and they have a pretty just, easygoing, easy breezy kind of life. But then like this, you and I both know all of that can change. And your story then changes. That is every single person that is on your team. And so from a leadership perspective, I think even if we can't know to that deeper degree about exactly what's going on, is to give people the grace, because whatever is in their baggage, whatever they're carrying around is significant and meaningful, the same way that your own story is significant and meaningful.
Yeah. Everyone has some version of their story, whatever that looks like. And there's no better than, worse than. It is your story. And I think it's important to be able to talk about something too, because radio silence also, I had a colleague once that was pseudo reporting to me, not really directly, but we were working on a lot of projects together and we were under a really tight deadline. And she didn't show up to work one day. And then all of a sudden, like, could not get in touch with her. And so I was like, slacking her, texting her, like asking, we were up against this deadline and she had all the information, bad system.
Oh, yeah.
We messed up, but the situation was what it was, but she was not answering. So my anger, quickly turned to worry.
Sure.
Because this was unlike her behavior. And this wasn't a couple hours. This turned into a day, 2 days. And I was like, okay, there's something going on. But I still was like, okay, why isn't she even answering? Mm-hmm. Like nothing. And she ended up coming back and not saying something, like she said something went on and something happened, but wouldn't talk about it. And I honored that. That was fine. But weeks later, found out what did happen. She talked about what did happen. And I just felt so horrible because it was something really intense that I wish she would have told me at the beginning, because it would have helped get through some of that quicker, easier for both of us, right? Not saying I'm entitled to know, but that would have just helped me maybe support her in a way different way than I was able to, because I didn't know. Because we have to remember, without information, we make up stories in our head.
We do. And, that makes me think that without forcing people to reveal parts of their personal life that they don't want to, and I think we both agree, you shouldn't have to do that. But even giving leaders and then employees some priming language to use that says, I'm having a significant medical emergency and I will need to be out for at least a day and maybe more. And here's how I will follow up with you.
Right.
In the situation that you're talking about, just close loop, right? Zip it up.
Yeah, zip that shit up.
Repack your bag and zip it up. But in the situation you were talking about too, is all she needed to do is say, something happened. I will be out for a few days. I will talk to, or I need to be out. I will keep you posted on when I'm coming back. Or here's what, because in 30 seconds could probably have said, here's where you can get this info, or I will take 2 minutes and I will send something to you, whatever the thing may be.
Right. And
then the story that you built up in your head, both on the anger side of things, but then the worry side of things, did not need to be there too. Like that's emotional baggage that didn't belong in that whole scenario. Care, compassion, allowing grace, space, all that is exactly the energy spot that you would have ideally been.
You want to lead from as a leader and in support. And I think it makes me also think about, you talked about leaders and their heavy titles, right? And their very important status. And I think that also reminds us that we're all just figuring it out. Because those people that you mentioned, and I know the types of people you work with, very highly successful, highly educated, highly renowned leaders, and I've worked with them too, CEOs of multi-billion-dollar companies that are having their own struggles that they can't talk to anyone about, right? And so they're just like us. Like, when you see the celebrities in the magazines, like they're just like us. Well, maybe, but those leaders are just like us. They were once where you were trying to figure it out too. And they're humans. So,
well, if we're being honest, we're all trying to figure it out every single day,
totally.
Every day. That's what we're all trying to do. And so I think this conversation, I love that we've hit both the mental load, because I think we need to honor that that's a piece of it. And we haven't necessarily solved that. And I know that we're going to get to in future episodes into some more strategies around it. You and I both know as coaches that you can't just go in and say, here's the problem, here's the solution. You love to go to the root cause, as do I. That's like the deep consultants in us. But then the coaching piece of it still has to be, you have to sit with going, what is the mental load that I'm carrying right now? Is that the right mental load? Is there a way to lighten the load? Probably. Is there a way to offload to someone else that is in my family and that should happen? You have to sit with it to really understand, is this the right balance for me right now on this day? Whatever day you're listening to this, is this the right balance for me? And if it's not, then that's where you start to unpack it yourself to say, okay, so what is out of balance? Not just it all feels out of balance. The same with the family dynamic. Like we can't solve that for our own selves. We can't solve it for anybody else. And I don't know that there's anything to solve. It's just, this is the family dynamic that you're in that season, and recognizing it, that's what you're in, and not trying to pretend like it doesn't exist. Like you can't pretend you don't have the family that you do, and nor can I. We have to figure out how to make the family that we've chosen and that we have work with the kinds of work that we take on with companies or employers.
Yeah. I think the key there is the awareness and the intention, and understanding that you actually have more agency and choice in that than you think you do.
Yeah, I agree.
And taking that chance to really try and figure it out and ask for what you need.
Yeah. I'm just glad that now that we're doing we're doing this show together and we're doing some other work together. It just is very exciting because that means our family dynamic is now overlapped again. When we weren't working together, we were just friends, and now we get to be friends and colleagues and co-hosts and everything else together too. So I love that our family dynamic went from this and now it's like this.
I think we'll put that one in the bag. Zip it up for today. See you next time. Thanks for listening. If you have some corporate baggage you want to unpack or something you took away from the conversation, drop it in the comments.
Find our social links in the description. Please like, comment, subscribe, and share these episodes.